Our next checkmate is called Epaulette's mate. In Epaulette's mate, the king is stuck between two of its own pieces, so it can't go to any of those squares. Therefore, in this case, the king can only go to these three squares, for example. This means that we can play queen to e6 here, which perfectly gives checkmate by covering all three squares here. We're using our queen's ability to control diagonal squares, so that the king can't go to any of those squares either. Now this might seem pretty simple because we only showed a mate in one example. However, this pattern can actually occur in the game and be very useful. So in this very real game example, we can see that black is actually threatening checkmate immediately. If it's black's move, he can play queen to g2 and checkmate. The knight here is actually supporting the queen, so if we want to get rid of the knight, for example, if we take on h4, then queen g4 check, and now, after queen d1 check, black can either choose to give perpetual check, or he can also just take the rook with b takes a6. So right now, white actually needs to play something a little bit more forcing instead of just taking the knight and solving the checkmate. Instead, what white should play is solve the checkmate differently by playing rook takes h6. So after rook takes h6, the queen is controlling the g8 square, so the king can't really retreat. The king can't really take the rook either because our rook is also protecting our other rook. This means his only legal move is to take our rook with his pawn. So if he takes our rook with his pawn, g takes h6, then now we can play queen to f7. We see that the rook and the pawn are blocking black's king from leaving, and the queen here controls the g8, g7, and g6 squares, preventing black's king from escaping as well. Therefore, white gives checkmate, and black doesn't have a chance to play queen to g2. Now in this position here, it's actually black to move. We already see that white's king is stuck between the two rooks, and it seems like if black can get his queen to g3, it'd be checkmate, Epaulette's mate, right? But the problem is the queen doesn't look like it's getting to g3 anytime soon. He can, I don't know what he can try, but he can, play queen to c6 or something like that. But then white can take black's rook. White's going to win this game. So black doesn't have time for these kind of repositioning moves. Instead, he must play something more forcing. So here we also notice that the knight is controlling f2 and the bishop is controlling h2. So it looks like black already has some help here. Instead of giving checkmate simply by playing queen to g3, it seems like if black can somehow get a major piece on the g-file, it would be checkmate since these two squares are already controlled by the knight and bishop respectively. Therefore, we need to play the move rook to g8. After rook to g8, the bishop takes, and now we see that the g7 square is open for the queen to use. So queen to g7 gives checkmate then. That's the only way to get something square on the g-file open. The h-pawn controls g5, g7 is not currently accessible, and the rook is forced to give himself up so that the queen can give checkmate. So this pattern might seem a little bit obscure or abstract, but I think you can use it in your games, and when it does occur, make sure you can take advantage of it.